Hello, I am presuming that we are now live. Susan J. Manford here from the Be Smart About Art Show, getting myself on the screen there. We are just about to be getting started with today's episode. We are focusing on our spaces. And what about your space? Are there things that you want to be doing? And perhaps you think at the moment you're going, gosh, you don't have enough space. There are things you don't have. I'm going to be talking you through how to go about this whole quandary, because here we find ourselves largely in our home spaces. I mean, some governments are relaxing the lockdown sort of parameters. Some might be pulling people back in, for example. And there we go. I have just now got us on my computer so that I can keep up with the comments. Just double checking that I can also get on my screen as well. So let me just pull those up. So stick with me here, everyone, whilst I sort out a few little things. There we go. I've got the sound sorted. Right. So I'm just going to pull up the comments. And what that means is that I can then keep on top of what you are saying, which is great. Okay. Because the focus of the Be Smart About Art show on Tuesdays is called Be Smart About Art Question Time. And that is all about you asking your questions. And today we are starting with this focus. And hello, I can see people are joining us live online now. Excellent to see some folks. For whatever reason, I am struggling to see the comments today, so I'm just pulling that out now. I think I'm going to be able to see the rest of those coming in. Okay, excellent. So what we are going to do to start, in order to kick off this subject, and then I'm going to be inviting your questions throughout, is I am going to read you one of the pieces from our book. So this is called Art is Your Life, Make It Your Living. And this was published about 5 years ago now by Be Smart About Art. And there is an article written by Chris King, who is my co-author for the book. He is the one who took all the photographs that are in the book. I mean, it's quite fun. If you can see some of these, try to get that through. So lots of very colorful book here. So each blog post is accompanied by a conceptual image, which is good fun. And this piece that he wrote at the beginning of the book is titled How to Turn Your Kitchen into a Photography Studio. And I'm going to encourage you to think about questions that you might like to ask me that are triggered by this piece. It'll take me about 4 minutes to read this. So jot down some notes, throw some questions into the comment box, and I would love to pick up on some of your questions throughout the session. This reads, and this is from Chris's mouth. This blog, well, the blog, as far as I'm concerned, has been an adventure. When Susan told me that she was going to start writing a weekly blog, that was back in November of 2012, I asked her, do you realize what you're committing to? Well, it was, of course, the wrong question, since it rapidly became to involve both of us. We both realized very quickly that the weekly posts would be enhanced by an accompanying photograph. Brother, a picture speaks 1,000 words, right? At first, I either chose something that I had already taken, Chris is a great photographer, or took a simple image. The image for have a clear reference point is one I already had, while that for exhibition titles I took specifically for the blog. So far, so not very exciting. All this changed when Susan wrote the post entitled The Art World, a Champagne Lifestyle. I had quietly been wanting to inject some humor into the blog, so I rather tentatively suggested that I take a photo of her drinking champagne in the bath. To my surprise, she agreed. After a quick trip to the shop, Susan climbed fully clothed into the bath, a fascinator on her head, and a champagne cocktail in her hand. I took the photograph with a wide-angle lens squeezed up against the wall of our tiny bathroom. And I'm going to find this image to show you on the screen as best as I can, because this image really was a big turning point in the blog. So there we go. That's me in the bathtub. I'm actually wearing sneakers at the time. It was a real champagne cocktail, actually, I will add. So after that, the next week saw the arrival of Agent Mumford, complete with sunglasses, intently aiming a banana at some distant foe. The piece was called Aim for Something Different. Once again, I hadn't quite expected Susan to agree to my whimsical idea, but she was happy to oblige. Since then, every photograph has featured Susan in some guise or other, serious or ridiculous. And for your information, the series continued until November of 2018, so it lasted for 6 years. In the first year, many of the images were taken in the room of our small flat where we had our meals, tables and chairs pushed aside, the occasional sheet draped over a clothes rail to reflect some light. And we're starting to pick up on how you can be really clever about your setting as well. I mean, it really was not an ideal setting. After a year of blogging, I went on a studio lighting course and then bought myself a pair of studio flashes. Don't offer discounts too quickly as the first photo shoot with the flashes. So I think that's actually quite nice to pick up on as well. So that first image was completely fine, which did not have any kind of professional lighting. But this image actually did have professional lighting. Don't offer discounts too quickly, it was called. Most commonly, Susan writes the blog post on a Sunday. I do some proofreading and small edits. Then I come up with the idea for the image. Sometimes it's a matter of 5 minutes, but it can take a lot longer to shoot. Same goes for blog posts. Some of them come out quickly, and some of them take an absolute age, and you have to rewrite them who knows how many times. Sheriff Susan took a lot of setup to do to get the highlight key, probably the high key background, since it was the first time I had used this technique, as well as the dash to buy props and make the bang. That was a bang flag. Susan, the bus driver, was pure luck. We spotted a repurposed bus outside a charity shop. I spotted it. I thought that must be something that we can use in the blog series, and then we went back the next weekend. Occasionally we take speculative photographs with the idea that we can use them later for a blog, and we've actually continued to do that to this day because we still have intent to do more blog posts. The photo for when do you generate your best ideas is a good example. We took this on a weekend trip to the Palace of Versailles outside Paris with no idea how or if it would be used. These random photographs are also useful for those weekends when one of us is traveling. Well, that was in a different lifetime, it seems. The starting point for the blog is then the photograph rather than the other way around. So I would go to, say, New York, I would have a photograph to use, and then I would write a blog post based on the actual image itself, which is a really good, just creative way of working. I think it's like when you say to photographers, right, go and everyone shoot your images on the same street, do it over the next month, and we'll see what everyone comes back with. It's a really interesting sort of exercise to do. So we did that really with photographs and writing a blog post with you, the art world, as the reader. So here we are then with our first book. It's been a delight to create the photos for the blog, and it's been a great source of inspiration and insight for the other photographic work that I do. I hope you enjoy reading the book and looking at the photographs as much as we have enjoyed making them. Chris King, October 2015. So that's when we had successfully run a crowdfunding campaign, and we proceeded to actually publish the book. Now I am going to go back and double check how this is looking on Facebook, because I don't actually think I'm seeing everything that's going on in the video. It's very interesting, everyone, when you use different devices, and indeed I have found a different way of looking at this now, and thank you for the share as well, everyone. You do find different ways of operating, say, live streams, depending on what kind of device you're using. So what I'm doing now is I am grabbing my trusty markers, because what I want to do today is to draw out some ideas that I think would be really useful for you thinking about your projects. And I've got my whiteboard here behind me. I do need to double check to see if I've got the whole thing in view, and yes, I do. That's excellent. Now for you, what I'm going to encourage you to do is to throw in your questions that you have got about the kind of things that I'm bringing up. So this is Be Smart About Art question time, and I'm very happy as much as possible to address the questions that you have in relation to this topic. So we headed this up by talking about how to use, say, smaller spaces and how to use them creatively. But what I actually want to do is I want to expand upon that and to think, okay, not only how to make use of smaller spaces, but what ideas do you have niggling in the back of your head that you might want to be pursuing in this different era that we are currently living through. So as an exercise, I'm going to say, what ideas are niggling in the back of your mind, and start thinking about that, writing down some ideas yourself. And I'm going to say for that, for this era, and now I'm hoping I might need to bring the computer closer. Let's just see how that's looking. I'm going to bring that just a little bit closer. We're all learning on this crazy adventure that we're going through. So there we go. Let's just get that a little bit closer to help you see that better. So what ideas do you have? Are there any ideas that you have got niggling about that are just going, I really want you to do something about this. And I partially say this because as somebody who has run business myself 15 years, I know exactly what this is like. You'll have this idea and you're like, no. I can't do that right now. I'm just gonna push that to the side. And then it just keeps on presenting itself. And sometimes you've just got to go, right, idea, I recognize you. What can I do about you? And a good focus for the session is thinking specifically about ideas that you can then make happen within your space that is your home. Whatever kind of home you've got, whether you're in shared accommodation, if you've got your own place, if you're in the city, if you're in the countryside, wherever you are, then we're thinking about, okay, you've got this idea, let's just have a play. Let's think about how you might be able to make that really, really happen. And I know that we're seeing lots of new projects coming into being. We're seeing galleries, online galleries that are opening. We're seeing whole new video interview series. I mean, we are just seeing so much taking place. So what's the thing that you want to do? It could be professional, it could be creative, whatever it is you want to do. Now, the second point in relation to this is, with this idea, what's holding you back? So I'm writing that down. What's holding you back? Is it to do with the amount of space that you've got? Is it to do with some resources that perhaps you don't have? Is there something else that's maybe been a reason? It might be that you are overwhelmed. It could be that you are spending all of your time looking after the kids, homeschooling them. It could be that actually you still don't have anything to do at all, that you just don't have any motivation whatsoever. And all of these things I'm listing, I have been seeing happening with different people. And it's all completely understandable, and own that. And it's really essential that if you're going to do something, you make something happen, that you identify, if you've not done something yet, why not? So that is another way. I'm going to use a different color on that. I'm going to say, i.e., why not? And there's a reason that I want to say that phrase, because that brings in the why. Okay, so you originally had that first question about what ideas were nagging at you. A related question is, why do you want to be doing it? Really, really good. It's a good way to think about things, that why question. And then now that we've identified the what's holding you back, or why are you not pursuing it, it's what do you need? Now I'm going to underline what, because there's another thing that's going to lead us to. So what is it that you need in order for this to make this happen? And how can you potentially get creative about doing this? Now, a really good example for you that's pertinent right now is, if I actually think about my own garden space, and then I'm going to give you another example. Some people are seeing what I'm doing with gardening. They're like, wow, you must have the most amazing garden. And I go, no, it's a teensy, weensy, L-shaped garden that hugs the back side of the house. And I mean, it is just punching above its weight. Every little inch or centimeter of that garden is being used. So if there was something holding me back, it would actually be both the size of the garden and the fact that it's typically quite dark garden. So what can you grow in that environment? And then what do you need? Well, maybe I need what I just had delivered to me, which is a planter. I need to make use of every single space. I need to use some shelves. So making use of that space, even though it's limited. Now, the other example that comes to mind during this time, and just a reminder, throw in your questions, throw in your comments. I'm here to answer your questions for you. I've been building businesses for years, supporting other people with their businesses, building my own as well, all in the art world. So with the other example, is face masks. People are getting really into the creation of face masks. And you might think, oh, the thing that's holding me back is that I don't have a sewing machine. But now we've got tons of videos of how to create face masks not using sewing machines. So it's completely fine. You don't actually need a sewing machine. That's more something that is an idea that might stop you. And then you go, actually, there are some solutions. And thankfully, people are identifying that hurdle that people are facing. Now, this brings up a key word, which is perfectionism. I know all about this because yours truly is also a perfectionist. And thank you for the comments there. This is that temptation to get something so right according to your idea of what it needs to do or needs to be before you actually go forth with it. And this time that we're living through is a time to just pull the trigger and go. What I'm not suggesting is that you do things prematurely. I want you to be ready enough, but just be aware of perfectionist temptations. This is highly common of creative individuals, of which I am very much so one. So that is something that I've been tackling since I became aware of it myself in about 2001, when the operations manager for the company that I worked for at the time, I was a manager myself, but she identified this about me, and it's something that's very true to my core. So I have to go, oh, I'm holding back because I want it to be just so. So I've really learned to overcome that and find a balance. But it's something I would say, if your tendency is to try to perfect things before actually doing anything really about them or launching them, it's probably something you'll be dealing with permanently. But as we've discussed previously in this same show, that it is possible to create new habits as well, and that's really helpful. Now, we have been addressing this: what ideas are you niggling? And we've got the why associated with that. What's holding you back, i.e. why are you not proceeding, or why had you not been proceeding? What do you need in order for this to happen? Now, and this is this project, it's how to use your space, etc. The next question is going to be about who to get involved. Now, this could be people like yourself who've got maybe a similar profession who you'll end up working with. Maybe you think actually having more minds in the match would be brilliant. It could be that it could be a complementary type partner. So if you're a curator and you want to involve some artists in conversations, it could be artists, it could be writers, it could be journalists, it could be collectors. I mean, I've been seeing all kinds of video series with various people who are being spoken with. It depends on what you're doing. Are you doing a public project? Are you pursuing a new program of exhibitions that you can present? Is it a new type of work that you're creating? Is it something personal? Who to get involved? Now, I very intentionally worded this in this way to not say who do you need to get involved. I haven't said who would you like to get involved. I said who to get involved. And that is very mindfully done because we're thinking about who is it? And if you don't have specific people in mind, then what you might do is think about a category of person and seek out some introductions as well. But another way of thinking about this too is if you think that there's somebody that you might think, gosh, I've got to do some things with that person, think about the person, and maybe that's going to trigger the idea up at the top. There are all different kinds of approaches, and you can be really creative. We've got a comment from Debs, who is a one-to-one advisor with Be Smart About Art. Hello. And she says, agree on perfectionism. This is the time to play and try things out. If it doesn't work, fall fast and move on. None of us know the right way at the moment. Absolutely agree on that. Let's then move to the next question, which is when. So when to do what? So when do you need to speak with someone? When do you need to identify what you'll be buying or bringing in or making? When will you start communicating about this? When will you be actually launching it? When will you be following up? So that's all to do with what you're putting into your calendar. And this can be really visual, because what you can always do by all means is get yourself a calendar, and basically you take yourself through these different steps. And in the calendar you say, okay, on just not putting enough, maybe that's about 7 days, something like that. And you can say, right, on that day I'm going to be reaching out to that person. On these 2 days, I'm going to make myself available to speak with potential collaborators. On this day, I'm going to communicate with social media and my email list. On this day, I'm going to produce the first blah blah, whatever it is. And this is, by the way, what I was just now suggesting is something that might be done publicly. But is there something that's completely a private project that you're not sharing with anyone at all? You might involve some collaborators, you might not, but this is all about you making this thing happen that you might have been niggling at you, but that you've not been pursuing. And again, tackling those things that you think are perhaps holding you back. Now, we're going to keep on encouraging people to ask questions, particularly in relation to projects that you're tempted to be pursuing, or new ideas that you're tempted to be pursuing that you haven't quite done anything about. So feel free to pop in your comments or your questions. Any really specific questions or challenges that you've actually faced already, I'm very happy to do my utmost to address them. And then this is going to be important. Now, all of this is actually, I would say, these are all important steps to take. It's how much. Now, how much time? So that's an investment. That's a type of value. Do you need equipment? What else do you need? And that's going to lead to how much moolah is that going to be? Whatever your currency is. I've put temps at dollar signs, pound signs, and euros, although you can't exactly see that on the whiteboard. So it's time investment, equipment, moolah, etc. If it's going to be something online, you might need some kind of hosting services potentially. Are you also going to need to be learning, etc.? And that actually then takes us to this is the big final one. I think my marker is going kind of light now, which is how. How, and I'm putting it in huge letters, because how are you basically going to bring your idea to fruition? So those are the steps that I wanted to take you through in terms of addressing those ideas that you've got that are nibbling at your head. We've still got another 8 minutes, so I'm going to sit down with you and we can have a little chat about this as well. So what are your thoughts? What are your questions? And I'm just going to continue to think about how we can really start to tease out some more details with this, and to think about some examples as well. There are different ways that you want to approach doing different things, and it depends on your stage of career. If I go right back to, say, 2005, I had set up as an art dealer. I had roped in a friend of mine who, I guess he was still living in my home state of Arkansas at the time, and he's now living in New York. And so he helped to build my first ever website. And I think that he probably updated that for me. I'm not sure if I actually did the updates myself or not. That's when I taught myself how to do Photoshop as well. And wow, was that a learning curve. Yay, hey, for the days of Canva. If you haven't checked out Canva for photo editing, it's excellent. And if I look back to something that I did back in, so I set up the company in 2004, and then I did my first exhibition in my home state of Arkansas in 2005. And I think that's a good example of how you address what your needs are at the time, and how you might do things differently to what you would do at a different point in your career. So back then, essentially, I had a group of artists who were based between London, elsewhere in the UK. There was an artist who was based in France. There was an artist in Canada. There was an artist in the States. And essentially, I was a brand new art dealer. I had a master's or master of arts. I had experience for having worked in several galleries. I had successfully curated a selling exhibition. I curated a show at a pop-up. Well, that was before the term pop-up was in existence, but I had already done a pop-up show. But I thought back in 2005, right, I need to put myself in a situation where I can pretty much guarantee to myself that I am going to sell works of art for these artists so that they start to trust me. And I often talk about establishing know, like, and trust when it is working with partners, when it's working with people who you might be introducing as collectors or clients or patrons of yours. So this know, like, trust concept really goes throughout all these different types of relationships. And it's important to reinforce those principles throughout. And so at the time I thought, right, in order to get those artists really on board, to collaborate with me, to trust me, I knew that at the time I was an early stage, pretty young art dealer. What I decided to do, well, this might seem surprising to you, is I went from London over to my home state of Arkansas, which is not exactly known to be an art market. I would say it's a localized network, as in it's a localized art market. And you're beginning to see maybe a little bit more movement of people between Arkansas and exhibiting online and selling online. And I don't think I've seen, oh no, I have seen, there's one gallery from Arkansas that I have seen at some of the art fairs in Miami and in New York and in London. And it's, oh my gosh, that was incredible to see North Little Rock listed that was with Haynes Riley and his gallery. I mean, absolutely fabulous program that they've got. But going back to Arkansas is probably not the most obvious approach, but it made sense. And the reason why was back then, I thought my stronger network, my bigger network, my dedicated following, people who believe in me and want to support me in what I'm doing in my life, are mostly back in my home state of Arkansas. At the time, I was still very much in the earlier months and years of building a network in London and the UK. I don't come from this country, so I've built everything from scratch, essentially. And so I went back to Arkansas, and surely enough, I successfully sold pieces by every single artist who was exhibiting. They all got paid. It all was just great, apart from the big shipping challenge we had in getting and dealing with import and export when you're dealing with a state in the USA that's not used to international exhibitions of artwork. So that was a different story, and thank you very much to my dad for helping me with that. That scenario unfolded over the next year, where the state of Arkansas thought I owed a whole lot in shipping, but they didn't realize it was a temporary exhibition. We only owed import duty for pieces that had been imported into the state. Very interesting, and that's a whole other topic. And if you've got questions about that kind of logistic, feel free to make a little comment, because we can always address that in another show. I can always bring on some guest speakers as well to address these various topics. So with that, I think what I was doing is I was going, right, what ideas were niggling me? Well, I wanted to establish credibility with the artists. I wanted to get trust with the artists. And what I needed to do was find a way of satisfying that. And I knew at the time that if I did shows in England, that I just didn't have the collector base. And it takes time to build that trust. Now, it's not to say that people who have purchased other services or other goods from you, you couldn't convert over into buying art. But I was a new business owner altogether. And therefore, I think at the time, I probably had I had 3 collectors from my previous exhibition. One was a couple, and they were based in London, so that was a starting point. One was one of my best girlfriends, and one was a friend who lived in New York City. So I didn't exactly have a collector base. So that was a smart thing to do. So at that point in time, my little idea that I had in my head was to go and do this show. And I somehow managed to make that happen. We did all of the shipping between the artists and myself. We did all of the marketing, all the communication. I had to do all of the preparation in advance. The show was actually held in my brother's house, which at the time was under construction. So it made a really groovy environment. You had all of these stud walls throughout the place. We hung works of art. It was just fantastic. And it was also arranged at the time that we did it, right after his wedding, so that I could also help to look after things and the presence in his house, because that's a known time for burglaries, potentially, is after somebody's been married and they've gone off on their honeymoon, which is exactly what he had done. So the show was successful. And I pretty much, without having had a Susan in my life to take me through this, I pretty much went through this process and came up with it. But it wasn't an easy thing to do. It was one of these really big ideas that I just made happen. And if you took all of the costs, everything, the travel, all of the shipping expenses, all of the marketing, all of that stuff, and you compare that to the turnover to the sales that we did make a profit on that show. And even if we hadn't, I would have been happy with it because it would have been what you call a loss leader. It would have been the start of really successful sales taking place through that gallery business. Even though I'd sold a few pieces here and there in London to just private clients, people who I personally was getting to know, this was really the big first serious event, and that was followed then by a big exhibition the next late winter in early of 2006, which ended up getting into the Times, and it was in St James's, and then we moved to our Soho space, and the rest is history, as they say. So, what then do you have that you think you'd really like to pursue that, or you'd like to do something in your space, and particularly for this era, take yourself through this exercise, draw it out in a calendar, and it really does help you to proceed to do something about it, and brainstorm with other people. Pick up the phone, FaceTime somebody, whatever works for you, and talk the idea through others. If you've got colleagues, you've got relationships with for talking through ideas, if you've got an accountability partner, much like Debs, who's, as I was saying, a one-to-one advisor with Be Smart About Art, talk these things through with either your advisors or your colleagues. And I do trust you've been able to hear me. I've just realized I've had the mic away from my chin this entire time, so I'm suddenly probably much more audible to you, but that's okay. We're always learning in this new, very online world. So everyone, it's been fun. Thank you very much for coming along today for Be Smart About Art Question Time. I do look forward to welcoming you for future sessions. I've been Susan J. Mumford. I'm the founder of Be Smart About Art, a serial entrepreneur in the art market myself. Do check out, oh, and thank you for saying that you could hear me okay. Phew, that's good. So do check out our community at patreon.com/Be Smart About Art. That's where a lot of action is taking place in terms of, we're now meeting every week, a BSAA members gathering on Fridays to wrap up the week for fun and inspiration and new ideas and comparison. And we also have our active Facebook group. Just come check out the action, and be sure to check out Be Smart About Art's updates and activities across social media at Be Smart About Art. And I will add too that importantly, we do have this freely available program with the Be Smart About Art show and a lot of information that we share online. So if you're not in a position to invest in the community right now, that's fine. Get started and do what we can. You know, various things, as we've demonstrated in today's exercise, might hold us back from time to time, and we find ways of getting through. I trust that today's examples have been interesting and that you've maybe got some ideas that you will pursue in your own life, in your own career. Thank you very much, everyone. I'm going to sign out from Lewis and East Sussex, and here's to seeing you again soon. Ciao for now.